Hey shooters, this is John with Sun and Shadow, where we build tools for competitors and warriors. This video is kind of an impromptu after-action review of the Tactical Games Sniper Challenge out in Montana. I know some of you guys are headed to Alabama and Ohio this year. I wanted to get some thoughts out on paper as to how my match went, so that you can kind of understand, where some of the deficiencies were in my match and also what went well. So let's talk about a couple little things here. Again, this video is just kind of an informal review. If you have any questions, of course, please drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them for you. But just want to talk about my match, how it went, what I did well, what I didn't do well, what I improved upon, and maybe it'll help you out as you move on into the next matches this year. So let's start out with what I did well. When we go to these matches, there's always a lot of questions on long-range matches as to what gun should I bring. And a lot of people maybe who are new to the event or are new to long-range shooting in general, sometimes they get stuck up on the caliber. They're caught on, oh, I need to shoot the best cartridge that's available. I need to shoot a 6.5, or I got to shoot a 6 ARC or whatever. Because it looks the best on paper. But from my experience, I would just prefer to shoot the gun that I'm most comfortable with. So one of the things that I did well at this match was I chose a gun that maybe it's not the best on paper, but I felt most comfortable with it. And that is, it's a 5.56. I was shooting 77 grain projectiles. It's got an 18-inch barrel on it. It's my favorite gun, number one. I'm most comfortable with that gun. But at the same time, I've got other guns. I've got an AR-10 that's chambered in .308. I have a 6 ARC, and maybe those might have been better choices from a caliber perspective, but I don't shoot those guns as well, and I'm not as comfortable with them. So I chose the gun that I felt most comfortable with. Again, I don't think you should get caught up with caliber or anything like that. Just pick a gun that you like, pick a gun that you trust, and just roll with that. And it ended up working out pretty well for me. One of the second things that I feel like I did pretty well is something that I've been really focusing on over the past year, which is patience behind the gun. I learned this from the guys at Modern Day Sniper. If you don't follow them or you're not on their network or anything, I'd highly recommend that you get on there. There's a ton of information that they have, but one of the things that they talk about a lot is being mindful when you're behind the gun. I'm not someone who likes to go to war with targets, let's say, where you're just blasting out ammo in order to try and get a hit. I try to be very patient. That's what I've been focusing on a lot. And what patience does for me is, number one, you get more first round impacts, which is great. But number two, if you're patient behind the gun and you get a miss, it's easier for you to see and correct. Take that extra split second to really think about where that impact was so that you can adjust yourself, adjust the gun, and then get back on target. So I've been focusing on that a lot, and I felt like I did that pretty well this past weekend at Montana. Another thing I think I did well was my pistol shooting. I'm shooting, I had a dot on my pistol here. We had a couple of tough shots, some distance shots with the pistol. We had some strong hands, some weak hands stuff, and I felt like I shot pistol pretty well. So pistol, precision matters for pistol too. So make sure that when you come to this event, the Sniper Challenge, that you also have your pistol skills sharpened as well. Another thing is finding and ranging targets. This is not something that we do very often in any match. There's only a couple matches out there where you have to actually find and range targets for yourself. So it's not a skill that a lot of people have. I wouldn't say that I'm incredible at it, but I would say that I did it much better than I did last time. Finding things, ranging them for yourself is an important skill to have, and I think that you should be able to do that as well. So anytime you're at a regular match or just out at the range, maybe you should try and find some targets. If you're there with your teammate, maybe you can talk each other on to targets. Try to range them for yourself. Confirm what the matchbook says. Those are all things that you could do at a regular match to prepare yourself for the Sniper Challenge. And then lastly, the last thing that I feel like I did pretty well, I'm still learning, but I'm doing better at, is communication. I was not on a team, I was in the individual gas gun division, but you still have to communicate to spotters and also the ROs. So a great example is when you find the very first target in a string that you're shooting, you have to describe that target to the spotter so that they can be on the target that you're shooting at, and they can also confirm that you're on the correct target. So one of the methods that I used for that, I've learned this from some other shooters, is finding a macro item out in the field. So whether that's a tree or a big rock or a house or a cliff or a hill or whatever it is, you start with a big item and you kind of funnel your way down from there. So for example, we had a couple of silos out, kind of like a farm. So there are like a couple of silos out there. Well, you say, all right, we're looking at the silo on the right, and to the right of that right silo, we have a little bush or something like that. And then from there, if you come down, 3 or 4 mills, you'll find that there's a target at the base of that bush or something. So kind of working with big objects that are out in the field or big features in the landscape and kind of narrowing your way down from there, I felt helped me to talk on the spotter or the RO just to confirm that I was on the right target. So those are the things that I think I did pretty well. So next we'll talk about some things that I did not do very well. First of all, I am from Florida. Most of the matches that I shoot are in the Southeast. This was really my first time being out shooting in the hills. We were out west in Montana. So elevation, hills, all this stuff is new to me. So some things that I did not do well at this particular match were, first was opening wind calls. Here in Florida, number one, we usually always have mirage. There's always the ability to see, what the mirage is doing, so you can get an idea of wind direction. You always have flags at the ranges. You always have grass that's blowing. At this match, there was not an opportunity for me, at least, to make really good opening wind calls. And the things that I was looking for wind were just not there. It's really dry. There was no mirage that I could find, at least. The grass was mowed all around the targets, so there wasn't any grass blowing in between me and the target. There weren't any flags. There were bushes out there, but they weren't really moving at all. So having a good opening wind call was pretty difficult. I just didn't understand the environment and I didn't know what to look for. So there's a lot of learning that I need to do there. The next thing that I did not do very well was mill ranging. In fact, the very first stage that we started on Saturday, on day one, was the mill range it stage. And I felt like I understood the concept, how to do the math. I also have this little device, the Mill.Master. Master. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this before, but it's an analog calculator. It's got like a little slide in it. And what you do is you compare your measurement in mils to the size of the target. In this case, the targets were 6 inches and 12 inches. And you compare your measurement in the in your reticle with this little slide thing here, and it'll tell you what range the target's at. Well, turns out that I'm not very good at measuring with my reticle. I actually didn't hit a single target, didn't even get a follow-up shot. I was so far off on my first shot that making a correction to get the second follow-up was not happening. So I ended up getting 0 targets on that stage, which was it's like putting the hardest question on a test, as the very first question. So it was really difficult for me, kind of a little bit of a blow to the ego, let's say, but that's not to say that it couldn't be done. There was a guy who was shooting with us who he crushed it. He had first round impacts on like 3 targets and always got his follow-up shot. I mean, he was spot on with his measurements. So not saying it can't be done, just saying that I didn't do it very well. So something that I need to work on. I had also mentioned the difference in elevation between Florida and Montana. We were going from sea level to 4,800 feet, and it doesn't really sound like much, but man, my cardio was not on. So I definitely felt it a lot on some of the runs, and even just picking up some weights and moving them a little bit. I was pretty crushed. So that was an interesting development as well. And then lastly, ego. I felt like I did all right, there, but ego got in the way sometimes on some of the stages. Maybe I rushed a couple shots in positions where I felt like I could do it, but wasn't able to actually get a hit. On one stage in particular, I'm still kind of kicking myself about it. The day 2 on the long movement, we had a pistol stage, and you get to the stage and you have the option to pick up a 100-pound sandbag and put it on your shoulder and shoot with that sandbag on your shoulder, or you could run around the building twice and you could pick up a 50-pound sandbag instead, and you could hold that while you shoot. And in the sniper challenge, the hits that you get are weighed way more heavily than the time that it takes you to do them. But of course, my ego got in the way. I saw like, oh, it's a 100-pound sandbag. I can do that. I picked it up and put it on my shoulder, and when you've got a sandbag like that on your shoulder, you can only kind of shoot single-handed. And we had 16 shots, and I ended up putting the bag down twice, I think, just to kind of shake my arms out. I got 8 out of 16 hits, so that was a little bit of a blow. And by the end of it, I was just thinking, man, that was so silly. Like, I should have just run around the building twice and put this guy on my shoulders instead. So if you kind of huck this guy on your shoulders, at least you can rest this up top here while, you got 2 hands on the gun. And I'm not saying I would have hit every single shot, but what I mean with that is that, your hit percentage could have gone up. If what you're after is just points and not time, then, maybe you should consider that. Don't let ego get in the way. Just because you can pick up the 100-pound sandbag doesn't mean that you should, So maybe think about that. At least that's something that I need to think about as well. So those are the things that I didn't do very well, and we'll look to improve those next time. So lastly, let's talk about some of the things that I improved on from the last one. I did shoot the very first sniper challenge in Texas last year. From that, I had a lot of learnings that I brought into other matches, and I've kind of worked on those things in those matches to kind of bring them here. So I think one of the first things that I actually learned from the tactical games, the regular tactical games, is visualization techniques that help you organize and plan your stages. One guy in particular, Sal Hernandez, he's an elite men's competitor. I've watched him a bunch of times when he gets ready for stage. He's a phenomenal shooter, a phenomenal athlete, but I've watched him a bunch, and you can actually see his visualization process because he acts it out. He kind of air guns, let's say, and you can see him process what he's doing and working on. And if you watch some of those guys and their process, you might start to adopt some of those techniques for yourself, and that's what I've been doing for maybe 6 months now. I've been visualizing the stage, shooting the stage, maybe 10, 15 times in your head, maybe even air gunning some positions or whatever, and really understanding that stage before you even get up there. I can't tell you how much that has helped me in regular matches over the past 6 months. It's been a pretty phenomenal improvement once I started doing that. So that was one thing that I'm really happy about. I've improved a lot in my shooting skills because of that visualization technique, the organization and the planning that goes into developing your stage plan. So really like that. Another thing that I feel like I improved on a little bit, we talked about wind and making opening wind calls, but there's some things that I can't say that I'm a master at wind at all. It's really just taking your best guess at what the wind is doing out there and then correcting from there. On one stage in particular, I remember this, it was because it was just in my head. I didn't see any wind, I didn't feel any wind, but I'm like, man, it's Montana. There's got to be wind. there has to be something out there. So it's like something just kept telling me, like, there's wind out there, man, there's wind. You got to hold left or right, you just kind of got to pick one. But from everything that I could see and everything that I could feel, there wasn't any wind blowing. So the opening shot, I was like, well, I don't see or feel anything, even though I feel like there's something, feel emotionally, right? Like there's something there. So I just held dead center of the target, and I figured if I miss, I'll just correct from there. I just want to make sure I get a good, perfect center shot. And I put it on the center of the target, pulled the trigger, and ended up getting a first round impact. There was no wind out there. So it's not just like, oh, I know that there's wind out there, I just can't see it. It's not like that. It's like use the information that you can gather with your eyes. What do you feel on your face? What do you see downrange? I felt like I improved a little bit, there making that call. Again, I'm not a wind master or anything, but I just felt good about that shot, trusting, the information that I saw in front of me. And then lastly, again, I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but patience, being patient when you're shooting. Don't just start blasting. If the reticle's not on the target, if the reticle's not exactly where you want it to be, if you're not controlling the trigger and you don't have the gun set up correctly, you're in a weird position, fix it. Get it solved so that you're comfortable taking that shot. Be patient with it. This game, the tactical game Sniper Challenge, it weighs hits very heavily. Not just how fast you do something. You get way more points for hits than you do for doing something really fast. So it pays you to have hits. And I would say just try to be mindful about that. Be patient behind the gun when you break a shot. And I feel like, I improved pretty well in that aspect over the past year or so. So again, it's kind of been helpful for me. So I think that's it. Those are kind of the review that I wanted to go over for myself and also for you guys that are heading to Alabama and Ohio this year. Hope you guys have a blast. Again, if you have any questions on the Sniper Challenge, please hit me up, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And hope you guys have fun out there, and we'll see you at some of these matches. So take care.